Let's look into the chemical reactions that aldehyde and ketone functional groups can undergo. The first set of reactions are pretty simple. What happens when you reduce them? This is something where we have seen this in synthesis of alcohols. You can take your aldehyde or ketone and reduce them to get the corresponding alcohols. Your aldehydes will give you primary alcohol, your ketones will give you secondary alcohol. This is straightforward. Now, what all can you use for this particular reaction? You can use your hydrogen with metal catalyst, nickel, palladium, platinum or Raney nickel can be used. We can also use lithium aluminum hydride and sodium borohydride. Both of them will get the job done. Now, these are extremely simple, so I don't have to go through it again. We can look into the alcohol lecture if you need. Now, let's move on into converting your aldehydes and ketones into alkanes, and this is an important set of reactions. There are 3 of them. We briefly saw them in your alkanes lecture, synthesis of alkanes. Conversely, it is going to be reactions of aldehydes and ketones right now. Let's go one by one. The first one is Clemmensen reduction. You might have seen this in school, but at the level at which in NEET it comes, it's a little bit one level up, higher up. Okay. Now, you can have your carbonyl functional group getting converted to your alkane. So, this looks straightforward, and what we can use is zinc amalgam and HCl. So, this is pretty straightforward, but what you need to know is this is not going to be a great method to synthesize an alkane from an aldehyde or ketone that has an acid sensitive group in there. Acid sensitive group meaning any other functional group that is present in this backbone that can be sensitive to the given acid environment in a Clemmensen reduction. Now, generally we can write it down actually. You don't want to be doing Clemmensen reduction on a keto alcohol. The reason being, let's take an example, it's easier. Let's assume that this is the carbonyl group that we want to reduce to make it into a alkane group. So, this is a keto alcohol, right. Now, what will happen is, sure, this can be reduced by zinc amalgam and HCl, but the acid can also protonate this OH and remove the OH as water molecule and give you a double bond, just like we saw in your alkenes lecture. So, this is what we are hoping for to get this. This C double bond O is affected and we get this product. But what will happen is a side product can form where this OH can go and then leave with one hydrogen either on this side. So, this OH is gone. So, I can get a double bond here. This is Zaitsev product, Hoffman product. These two are possible as well, and a little bit of this as well. So, what if it is not reduced, but very little, because zinc amalgam is going to reduce this functional group, but this functional group is in resonance with this double bond. So, this is also a product that is possible. Which of the following products are not possible on Clemmensen reduction? If they give you need to know that all these 4 are possible. They may give you 3 and then they can ignore just 1. Now, this is what is called an acid sensitive. So, when I say acid sensitive, what it means is there is present another functional group other than the one that we are interested in, that is sensitive to or reacts with acid. Here I have this. So, in your syllabus, mostly the acid sensitive group you are going to deal with is the alcohol group, which is most prone to give you the corresponding alkene. So, anytime they give you a molecule and they ask you to do, which is the best way to do, there is a OH group, you don't do Clemmensen reduction. Now, the next one we can do is Wolff-Kishner reduction. This is Wolff-Kishner reaction is also the same. You can start with the same molecule, end up with the same molecule. The reagent is different. Hydrogen in presence of a base. Now that OH minus can also be given as alkoxide. What you want to know is, it will give you the same, but here the acid sensitive group is attacked by H plus, whereas if I use Wolff-Kishner, this molecule will give you only this product. So anytime you have acid sensitive group, it is better to do Wolff-Kishner than Clemmensen reaction. But that does not mean Wolff-Kishner is always better than Clemmensen, because just like acid sensitive here, you cannot use Wolff-Kishner with a base sensitive compound. So anytime I have an acid sensitive compound, I cannot do my Clemmensen reduction. For these compounds, it is better to do Wolff-Kishner reaction, because Wolff-Kishner reaction is in presence of a base, so the base is not going to affect the OH. So this is extremely good for acid sensitive compounds. But you cannot use Wolff-Kishner always, because Wolff-Kishner has other problem. Just like these are acid sensitive, you cannot use Wolff-Kishner on any substrate that is base sensitive, because I have a base present. Generally, halocarbonyls, haloketones and haloaldehydes, if you take, the halo group is sensitive to base. It will undergo dehydrohalogenation. We have seen this before in synthesis of alkenes and alkynes, and also reactions of alkyl halides. Now, what will happen? Let's take an example. Let's take this. So, if I were to do this, I am expecting to get this compound through Wolff-Kishner reaction. So, that is what we want, but unfortunately there is a X present which will undergo minus HX in presence of OH minus. So, I will end up getting these three products as well because of dehydrohalogenation. So, I can use Wolff-Kishner for any compound that has acid sensitive group inside. I can use Wolff-Kishner, and similarly any group or any compound that has base sensitive group, I can use Clemmensen. This is one thing that you might not have seen in your CBSE book or school, but this does come, which is the best way to do a certain conversion. And the third conversion we can do is red phosphorus HI. We have seen red phosphorus HI, this particular reaction in your alkane synthesis. This is an extremely strong reducing agent. So, it will actually reduce a OH group or a X group along with C double bond O into corresponding alkane. So, this is very good, but you cannot use it when you want to retain your OH or X. So, if it is acid sensitive, I will use Wolff-Kishner. If it is base sensitive, I will use Clemmensen. If none of the groups are present, then I can use any of them. Again, understand this is extremely strong. When you look into the carbonyl functional group, this is how the carbonyl functional group is. Let's put an R group here, and this could be R prime or hydrogen, ketone or an aldehyde. Now, this carbon, what all do we know about this carbon is, it is sp2, sigma bond, sigma bond, sigma bond, pi bond. It's a sp2 hybridized carbon. sp2 hybridized carbon comes under the category AB3 from chemical bonding, sp2 hybridized. So, this is going to be trigonal planar. So, if it is trigonal planar, now this can undergo addition reaction. What happens here? The carbonyl group, the carbon is more prone to losing its electron to oxygen because of the oxygen's electronegativity. So, the carbon is delta plus and oxygen is delta minus. So, now what we can do is, we can either go through electrophilic addition reaction or nucleophilic addition reaction. So if an electrophile comes and attacks first, that's an electrophilic addition reaction. If a nucleophile comes and attacks first, it is a nucleophilic addition reaction. It turns out that when an electrophile comes and attacks, it has to attack the oxygen because that's where the electrons are rich. Electrophile, electron seeking. A nucleophilic addition reaction means a nucleophile loves to see a person who is devoid of electron. An electrophile, it will come and attack the carbon. But it turns out the electrophilic addition reaction doesn't happen because when the electrophile comes here, the intermediate you get is not all that stable. Whereas a nucleophilic addition reaction is going to give you a stable intermediate. So let's look into a nucleophilic addition reaction. A nucleophile is rich in electrons. This could be lone pair electrons or a negative, doesn't really matter. As long as it's a strong nucleophile, it can come and attack. This is trigonal planar. So if this is trigonal planar, the nucleophile can come and attack this way or come and attack this way. This is important because when aldehyde or a ketone undergoes nucleophilic addition reaction, you want to remember the nucleophile can come both ways. That means it can give you a pair of enantiomers. Whatever compound you are going to get, it will give the enantiomers, one on this side addition and one on this side addition. So the nucleophile can go, let's put it this way, this on addition, and let's say this behind the plane of the board towards the front of the board, this way. What will happen if this attacks R C double bond O? Let's put this as aldehyde. If you put R prime, it becomes a ketone, it's the same thing. A nucleophile is going to come and attack RC nucleophile O minus. This is the intermediate. This intermediate is much more stable than the corresponding intermediate in the electrophilic addition reaction. Hence, aldehyde and ketones love to undergo nucleophilic addition reaction. I have this, the O minus is extremely stable because oxygen being electronegative. Now, whatever available electrophile is going to be, it is going to come and attack to the O. Usually it is H plus, so you can attack the H here. So if it is H plus, I get the corresponding compound. This is the basic backbone of what we are going to see right now. How an aldehyde or a ketone reacts with a nucleophile. Depending on the nucleophile of choice, you are going to get the corresponding alcohol derivative. That's what we are going to see. And again, this is going to be enantiomers. Now, when will you not get an enantiomer? One particular option is when suppose this is a ketone, this will give you the corresponding enantiomer. But if this is a symmetrical ketone, the R and R is attached, they are the same, so the corresponding carbon is not going to be chiral. So a symmetrical ketone will not give you one enantiomer, otherwise an aldehyde or a unsymmetrical ketone will give you one enantiomer. This is important. Now that we know the basics of how the nucleophilic addition reaction is going to work out in your aldehyde and ketones, let's look into the reactions that are involved in your syllabus. There are 4 particular reactions that are involved. The first one is addition of HCN. Here the nucleophile is Cn minus, but HCN is a weak acid, so it doesn't really dissociate much. So I don't get Cn minus easily. So usually what they do is they take it in a basic medium. So the examiner might give you that below the arrow, HCN below that, you can say pH 8 or 9, something like that, or OH minus. What happens is, if it's OH minus plus HCN, you end up getting H2O plus Cn minus. So it generates an electrophile. So it's much easier. Now a weak acid giving you a weaker acid, a strong base giving you a weak base. So a strong and strong reacts to give you weak and weak. I am not telling you this is strong, I am telling you this is stronger compared to water as an acid. Now when you have your aldehyde, double bond O, H, Cn minus, the Cn minus is the nucleophile, it comes and attacks the carbon, RCO minus H, Cn. And then we can get the H plus black from the H2O or leftover HCN to give you the corresponding compound. This is cyano And we have seen this before. OH is also called hydrin. So this is a cyanohydrin. And the most important reason this is important reaction is this R carbon is attached to a R group, hydrogen, OH and a CN. All four are different. So most of the time the cyanohydrin that you get is chiral. Now we can use the same for ketone as well. You are going to get the same cyanohydrin, but what you want to know here is all aldehydes will give you this reaction. When it comes to ketones, you get your acetone, butanone and pentanone. Those are the only three that will give you. Pinacolone will give you, that is not in your syllabus, but at least know that acetone, C double bond O, C, butanone and pentanone. Those are the only three ketones that will give you. This reaction is actually a reversible reaction and it is favored to the right side for an aldehyde. The equilibrium is favored on the left side to the ketone, meaning ketones are less reactive. Only these three are reactive enough to give you the corresponding cyanohydrin. This cyanohydrin can be hydrolyzed to give you the corresponding acid. The reason this is important is this could be a reaction. Let's we take our ethanol. I treat with Cn minus and then followed by H plus. So I am combining both the reactions together. So I end up getting OH, Cn. If I hydrolyze this, get this. So this is basically butahydroxy propionic acid or 2-hydroxy propionic acid, also called lactic acid. So this is a way to synthesize lactic acid. And another thing you want to know, lactic acid is chiral. So this is the reason why aldehydes and ketones are important. You start talking about so many compounds that you get used in everyday life and also used in biochemistry as well. So they start giving you these reactions and also they start giving you chiral compounds and hence they are extremely important functional groups. Your alkyl halides and alcohols are as important, but they serve as a precursor to get these type of products. So again, this is the first important synthesis of an addition compound of your aldehydes and ketones. The next addition compound that you are going to see, nucleophilic addition reaction of an aldehyde or a ketone, is reaction with aldehyde or ketone plus NaHSO3. This is a derivative of or a salt that comes from sulfurous acid, sodium bisulfite. If it is Na2SO3, it is sodium sulfite, it is one hydrogen is there, so sodium bisulfite. What it does when you react, for example, RCHO, you can write it this way, R, C double bond O, H, HSO3 minus. So that's the nucleophile. Sodium plus is just there for the charge. This nucleophile comes and attacks this carbon. So we get the corresponding compound RCH SO3H O minus. Now unless you put a proton, this is how it is going to be, but this is not as stable compared to the next compound. The hydrogen goes over here, so this is H plus transfer, RCHOH SO3 minus. The reason this happens is, I have OH here. If you look at it this way backwards, the OH gives the H plus. If you look at forward, SO3H gives the H plus, which is a stronger acid. Obviously this is a stronger acid. So this will end up giving you the corresponding hydrogen to this one to form a weaker base. So this is a weaker base compared to this one. And this is a white crystalline solid. Why this is important is, an aldehyde or a ketone can be used with sodium bisulfite to give a derivative, a sulfide derivative, that is white crystalline solid. So let's say you are doing a synthesis and you have formed your corresponding aldehyde. You can do this reaction, make it as a solid, try to separate it out. Once you separate it, you do hydrolysis of this, it gives you the corresponding aldehyde back. It's a way to purify the synthesized aldehyde and ketone. Whatever you synthesized is impure, you convert this to this compound, separate it out, wash it with water, hydrolysis, it gives you the corresponding aldehyde back. Here I want to make a small point. All aldehydes will answer this test. When it comes to ketones, only methyl alkyl ketones will answer. So you need this functional group. So methyl ketones will answer, and also it has to be alkyl, not aryl. You don't have the mechanism for this reaction, hence you don't have to worry. But this has to do with the nucleophile being weak and coming and attacking. At least you don't need to know all that. Just know that only these are the ones that are going to give you. So when they give you the final product and they say that it's a ketone and it answers iodoform test, you know that it's a methyl ketone. So now that we have seen addition reactions of aldehyde and ketones, we saw the first one is addition of HCN. You want to remember in the same order. First is HCN, second is your addition of sodium bisulfite. Both of them, all the aldehydes answer, ketones there is differences. I have told you that also. The third one I don't have to show you here, we have done it few times. It's addition reaction with Grignard's reagent, and we have seen this before. I'll just recap this. Formaldehyde gives you 1 degree alcohol, all other aldehydes gives you 2 degree alcohol with a Grignard's reagent, ketone gives you a 3 degree alcohol. So this we have seen this before. The next addition reaction we are going to see is treatment of an aldehyde or a ketone with alcohols. So let's first take of our aldehyde with alcohol. So if you just treat an aldehyde with an alcohol, it will not react because this is not a reactive compound. These are nucleophiles but not very strong nucleophiles. So this will not react, but I can make it react either by making this a strong nucleophile or making this as a strong electrophile. So what we can do this in a dry HCl environment. It's a reversible reaction, dry HCl. What dry HCl does is, it protonates the carbonyl oxygen, OH plus, H, which will give you something like this. Again, these are intermediates, they are resonance stabilized. Now, plus, this electron is taken over here. So this is resonance stabilized. Now what I have done is, the carbon in the aldehyde group is not all that electrophilic, but addition of dry HCl, which is a H plus donor, had made the carbon in the aldehyde group much more electrophilic. Now it can react with a weak nucleophile, in our case ROH, and it gives you, if we take ROH, the oxygen electron will come and attack here. We will jump to the product R, C, H, OH, OR, and this product is unstable, just like your gem diol. These are called hemiacetal. These can be stabilized because they react with one more molecule of ROH to give you acetal. Acetals are stable, whereas hemiacetals are unstable. So what you want to know is, the reaction is catalyzed by dry HCl and it's an addition of one molecule of aldehyde with two molecule of alcohol to give you acetal. It goes through a hemiacetal. Hemiacetal is unstable. The acetal functional group is something that you will actually end up seeing in your biomolecules, even your glucose. When you take a ketone, let's say unsymmetrical ketone, they can react with ethylene glycol to give you R, C, R prime, O, O. So basically this adds on to the C double bond O. So this is called a ketal, and these are stable. This is extremely important in organic chemistry because, let's say for example, you have this functional group and there is somewhere here there is a double bond. I want to reduce the double bond. I use let's say hydrogen with palladium, it will also attack my C double bond O. So I don't want to change my C double bond O. What you can do this reaction. This will protect the C double bond O. Now I will do whatever reaction I want. Let's say there is a double bond in R. I protect my C double bond O. Now I reduce my R group and then I can deprotect it by going back and do hydrolysis. So this is a way to protect your C double bond O group. We will see this in an actual example later. These are the examples that we have seen. So now we have seen 4 different nucleophilic addition reaction. First is HCN, second is your sodium bisulfite, third is Grignard's reagent, fourth is addition of an alcohol to an aldehyde or a ketone, and by the way this will proceed only when there is a dry HCl. The next set of reactions is basically when you treat aldehyde or a ketone with ammonia or ammonia derivative, R, C double bond O, it could be H or R prime plus NH2Z. So what we have here is ammonia, take one hydrogen away and put a Z group, ammonia derivative. So this will give you RC double bond NZ group. I'll actually go through an intermediate and then give you this, but this is more than enough. Now you want to remember what are all the possible products. If it is just, if you have your NH3, so this will be C double bond NH. If this is NH2OH, hydroxyl amine, so this is hydroxyl amine, you end up getting C double bond O, sorry, C double bond O is gone, R prime, double bond N, the H2 is gone, so I have this. This is aldoxime or ketoxime. When you have C double bond N OH, that is called an oxime. Okay. Now, depending on the Z group, there is a list of reagents that are in your syllabus. Now, if you see here, I have compiled all of them together. They are given you all of them here. You want to be able to remember, you don't need to worry about memorizing them. Just looking at them, the name itself will tell you. The important ones that you want to remember are, the first one is an imine bond. So, C double bond N is an imine bond. I have told you that. In the imine bond, if the N is attached to R group, that becomes a Skiff's base. The Skiff's base can be used as a test for aldehyde and ketones. Oxime I just showed you. All of them, when they combine, they become a ONE, semicarbazide, semicarbazone, phenylhydrazine, phenylhydrazone. Those are very simple. You also want to remember the one where an aldehyde or a ketone reacts with 2,4 dinitrophenylhydrazine. So basically, if you know hydrazine, put a phenyl group in there, that becomes phenylhydrazine. In the phenyl ring, there is 2 nitrogen groups, it becomes 2,4 dinitrophenylhydrazine. That is abbreviated as 2,4-DNP, dinitrophenylhydrazine. 2,4-DNP reacting with an aldehyde or a ketone will give you different color. So 2,4-DNP can be used for a test for aldehyde or a ketone, that's called a 2,4-DNP test. Depending on the type of the color you get, you can identify aldehyde or a ketone. You are expected to remember the names of the products. You don't have to draw any of them. If you just remember the names, as always remember, NEET all the questions, and JEE 20 questions out of 25 is just multiple choice. So you just have to choose the best answer. So it's not all that hard. Just make sure that you know when you have an aldehyde or when you have a ketone, which will answer for an aldehyde, where ketones will fail or which ketones will do. So you are going to be okay there. Let's look into oxidation reactions of aldehyde and ketone much more carefully. Now, as I told you, oxidation of an aldehyde will give you the corresponding acid, very simple. Ketone, you need an extremely strong oxidizing agent. So, ketone has 2 different sides, C double bond O, there is one side R group, one side R prime group. Which group you break, you don't have really control over it much. It can give either way, both of them will give you an acid if it is extremely strong. That reaction is not in your syllabus, it doesn't come actually. What happens when you treat an aldehyde or a ketone with mild oxidizing agents like Tollens reagent and Fehling solution? This is something you have to know. The important test for aldehyde and ketones that you are expected to remember is Tollens and Fehling's. tolerance reagent is ammoniacal silver nitrate solution, giving you a silver mirror will be the answer for aldehydes, whereas ketones do not answer your tolerance reagent. Couple of things you want to remember is your tolerance reagent is alkaline medium and it will be answered only by aldehydes, not a ketone. When it comes to your filling solution has two different parts, fillings A and fillings B. Now, depending on whether you use citric acid or tartaric acid or sodium citrate or sodium tartrate, you can call it a filling solution or a Benedict solution. Here it's the same thing, you get a copper precipitate, you get your answer for an aldehyde, whereas the ketones do not answer. But the most important thing that you want to know is filling solution is not answered by benzaldehyde. Even though it is an aldehyde, it does not have an alpha hydrogen, so it cannot undergo filling solution. So that one point you want to remember. Second thing you want to remember is because of ketoenol tautomerism, fructose, even though it's a ketone, can answer both your tolerance and fillings. So anytime a molecule is capable of forming through ketoenol tautomerism, go from a ketone into an aldehyde, it is capable of answering both tolerance and fillings. You want to remember that as well. Both the reagents are alkaline medium. The other thing that you want to remember is your terminal alkynes will answer tolerance and fillings. We have seen this extensively in our hydrocarbon lecture. Another important point you want to remember about the tolerance reagent is answered by formic acid, because when you look at formic acid, we can view it as one side as an acid, the other side as CHO group, aldehyde group, HC double bond O is present. So hence formic acid will also answer your tolerance reagent. Now moving on to the next oxidizing reaction, this is extremely important. It's iodoform reaction. Iodoform reaction is shown by any compound that is a methyl ketone or can give a methyl ketone on reaction in an oxidizing condition. So, anything that is a methyl ketone, ethanol, ethyl alcohol, and a 2-hydroxy compound, because this can get oxidized to C double bond O. Similarly, this can oxidize to C double bond O. So, you want to remember these. And also, it is answered by an intermediate. I will show you that in a minute. So, you want to remember this. What happens? The reagent is NaOX or X2 NaOH. This is called an haloform reaction because halogen is used. If you use chloroform, or chlorine, it is called chloroform reaction. If you use iodine, it is called iodoform. Iodoform is the most important among them. What happens in the first step is NaOH reacts with X2 to give you NaX plus NaOX. Your methyl ketone or C double bond O CH3 will react with your sodium hypohalide to give you RC double bond O CX3. Now this RC double bond O CX3 will react with NaOH to give you RC double bond O minus Na plus CHX3. This is called haloform. So you want to remember that you start with the methyl ketone, each of the hydrogen in the methyl ketone is being replaced by the corresponding halogen. So you get this, you want to remember this is the first product you get, which on further reaction with NaOH will give you the corresponding haloform and the corresponding sodium derivative of the acid. You want to remember this as well. It's an oxidizing condition, and the haloform, if it is iodine, it is called iodoform reaction. Iodoform is yellow precipitate. So the formation of an yellow precipitate tells you that there is a methyl ketone or anything that can give you a methyl ketone on oxidation. One other compound that can give you is CH3CHO. This also looks like a methyl ketone, except it is already Ci3. This is actually an intermediate in the compound. So they can give you a match the following question, or also they can give you choose the correct option where which among the following does not give you iodoform, or which of the following does give you iodoform. Now when they ask you which among the following does give you iodoform, it's simple. You have to choose the one and it is obviously easy. Which among the one does not give you means you have to eliminate the ones that give you iodoform. This will give you. The reason there is a group that just take a hydrogen to give you the corresponding iodoform. So this will give you the corresponding iodoform, and what will be the corresponding product here? HCOO minus, because there is only one carbon, so this will be hydrogen COO minus. This is called iodal, and this will give you an iodoform reaction. Again, iodoform is extremely important. It can be given by methyl ketone, and that methyl ketone can be a product of a given process. For example, I have shown you this before. Your hydration of an alkyne can give you a methyl ketone, terminal alkyne. So accordingly, you can figure out what compound it is given, A to B, B to C, C to D, and so on.